great saint, wrathful avenger, expert strategist. Olga of Kiev was probably one of the greatest people in Russian history, known for her ruthlessness and cunning. Olga was born sometime between the late 800s and early 900s. She was born in Pleskov to a family of Varangian origin. She married Prince Igor, heir of the Kievan Rus, at the age of 15. Prince Igor was the son of the founder of the great Rurik dynasty, Rurik, and was taken care of by Oleg of Kiev, who ruled after Rurik died. Soon Oleg died, and so Olga's husband took the throne. But some problems arose when Oleg died. One tribe outside the Kievan Rus stopped paying tribute to the nation. So Igor went with a large army, and demanded money from this tribe, the Drevlians. They gave him the money, but then as he was going back, he decided it wasn't enough. So Igor returned to Izkorostan, the capital of the Drevlians, demanding more money. But he had left the majority of his army behind, and only a small escort came with him. When the Drevlians asked their leader, Prince Mal, what to do, he said, "If a wolf come among the sheep, he will take away the whole flock one by one, unless he be killed. If we do not thus kill him now, he will destroy us all." So the Drevlians revolted, killing Igor gruesomely, tying his legs to two separate trees which they bended down, and then letting go. But unknown to them, this man's wife would return the deed tenfold. With Igor dead, Olga and their 3-year-old son, Sviatoslav, were alone. But the people of Deriva were not willing to leave them alone. They said to themselves, "See, we have killed the Prince of Rus. Let us take his wife Olga for our Prince Mal, and then we shall obtain possession of Sviatoslav, and work our will upon him." The Drevlians, coming to a decision, had 20 of their best men sent by boat to convince the Queen of the Rus to marry Mal. When the 20 men reached Olga, they were met graciously. When asked of their reason for coming, they told Olga that their great tribe had killed Igor, who was crafty and wolf-like. Since her husband was dead, Olga should marry the good and righteous Prince Mal. Olga replied, "Your proposal is pleasing to me. Indeed, my husband cannot rise again from the dead. But I desire to honor you tomorrow in the presence of my people. Return now to your boat, and remain there with an aspect of arrogance. I shall send for you on the morrow, and you shall say, 'We will not ride on horses nor go on foot, carry us in our boat.' And you shall be carried in your boat." So the men returned to their boats, glad the princess had agreed so quickly. But little did they know that Olga had dug a deep pit. So when the men were carried by Olga's people, they were dumped into the ditch, and buried alive. Olga mercilessly asked the men, as they were being buried alive, if this honor was to their taste. After finishing this, Olga sent a letter to the Prince of Deriva, stating that she would gladly come, but they should send people of great status to escort her, so she could come with the honor deserving of her status. So Prince Mal sent men of such power to escort Olga. When the Drevlians arrived, she told them they could come in front of her only after they had bathed. So the bathhouse was heated, and the Drevlians entered. But as they entered, Olga locked the door, and set the bathhouse on fire, burning the men inside. Olga then sent the Drevlians a new letter, telling them that they would have to hold a funeral feast for her husband, so she could weep over the grave. She also had them prepare a lot of mead. So the Drevlians did what she told, and when Olga arrived, she found everything just as she'd asked. And so she wept over her dead husband's grave, and had her retinue serve the Drevlians. When the Drevlians asked where their kin that had been sent to escort her were, she replied they were trailing behind. So the Drevlians began to drink a lot. Soon they were all drunk, and Olga told her followers to kill all of them. The Russian Primary Chronicle states that 5,000 Drevlians were cut down in this brutal slaughter. This includes Prince Mal and many of the remaining Drevlian dignitaries. But Olga was not done with her revenge. She would make sure that every Drevlian suffered. So she returned to Kiev, preparing a siege on Izkorostan. So Olga and her young son gathered a large army, and prepared to attack Deriva. Soon Sviatoslav cast the first spear, but it was inaccurate and poorly thrown, for the Prince of the Rus was just a child. Still the battle started, and Deriva was conquered. All the citizens stayed locked up in their cities, for fear of being killed. But the army of Olga marched on with only one destination in mind. The city where her husband was murdered, Izkorostan. They reached the city and laid siege for over a year. Soon her patience wore thin. She asked the Drevlians, "Why do you persist in holding out? All your cities have surrendered to me and submitted to tribute, so that the inhabitants now cultivate their fields and their lands in peace. But you had rather die of hunger, without submitting to tribute." They replied that they wouldn't mind giving tribute, but they were fearful of her vengeance. Olga replied that her husband had already gotten enough vengeance, and that she only asked for a small tribute. When the Drevlians asked Olga what she wanted, the primary chronicle states, "Give me 3 pigeons," she said, "and 3 sparrows from each house. I do not desire to impose a heavy tribute, like my husband, but I require only this small gift from you, for you are impoverished by the siege." The Drevlians became ecstatic, for this was a small task. So the tribute was fulfilled, and Olga told the Drevlians she would leave the following morning. The people of Iskorostan rejoiced at the prospect that they would be free from siege soon. Later that night Olga had rags tied to the birds, then lit on fire. Then the birds were set free, and they went back to their roosts. The very flammable thatched rooftops of Iskorostan. Soon every house was alight in a fire, impossible to extinguish. As the people attempted to leave, Olga had her soldiers capture them. Some of the survivors she killed, others she gave as slaves, and the rest she left to pay tribute. She imposed a high tax on the tribe, and returned to Kiev, victorious. Olga became a great ruler. She kept the throne for her son, and added many reforms, including changing the tribute system, and established many trading posts. But Prince Mal wasn't the only one who wanted to marry Olga. Olga cleverly avoided all suitors wishing to marry her, one of which was none other than Constantine VII, the ruler of the great Byzantine Empire, the heir to Rome and one of the strongest kingdoms at the time. When Olga came to the court of the Eastern Roman Empire, Constantine immediately liked her. He said she could rule with him in the city, but she replied she was a pagan, and that she would have to be baptized, and that she would only be baptized if Constantine himself performed the function. So Constantine baptized her, along with help from the Patriarch. The Patriarch then taught Olga the doctrine of the Church, while she eagerly listened. She was christened Helena, after the mother of Constantine the Great. After the baptism, Constantine VII told Olga he wanted her to be his wife. But she merely replied, "How can you marry me, after yourself baptizing me and calling me your daughter? For among Christians that is unlawful, as you yourself must know." And so Olga had outwitted the Emperor of Eastern Rome. He admitted defeat, and she left for home with many gifts of precious metals, and works of art. Olga helped spread Christianity throughout the Kievan Rus, but much of her people, including her son Sviatoslav, felt he would be made fun of if he became Christian. By developing churches and converting to Eastern Christianity, she forged closer ties with the Byzantine Empire. But her son stayed pagan and disregarded matters of the state, preferring to conquer territories. Olga defended the city of Kiev during the siege of Kiev of 968. She died a year later with her family by her side, and was given a Christian funeral per her requests. Olga later became the patron saint of Ukraine, and given the title Apostolos, meaning equal to the apostles, who were the 12 chief disciples of Jesus. Her goal of spreading Christianity throughout Russia was finished by her grandson, Vladimir, who Christianized the kingdom by force, destroying pagan idols and forced the people with spears to mass baptisms.